Hi, everyone, and welcome to this exciting new podcast for the first year Fast Trackers. We are going to be covering the weeks of November 20th, November 27th, and December 4th, the last 3 weeks of the semester. Can you imagine, Fast Trackers? It was only a scant few months ago when you started, and think about all that you've accomplished and how far you've come in just those few months. This will be the last official podcast of this semester, but I am working on a little special something, a holiday podcast featuring all of your teachers, so stay tuned for the announcement about that. All right, let's get started. If you have not already done so, go and get your calendar, your agenda, however it is that you are keeping yourself organized and on that fast track, and let's look at some assignments. And before we do that, let's look at the master plan. We can see the second and third last weeks of the semester there, and they are quite jam-packed. It's not quite over yet, so let's look at some of your assignments. First of all, on the Monday, Jean has asked you to read chapter 11 for his affective relationships course, so that will be important to keep up with those readings. Also on Monday, in my observing course, an important assignment, your group observation plan assignment is due, and that is worth 20% of your final mark. Remember that your group should be producing a cover page for that assignment. On Tuesday, in teamwork and communication, will be presentations, and from what I understand, those are worth 10% of your final grade. So those are the presentations in teamwork and communication. On Thursday, Intro to Practicum is out and Approaches is in. And so remember that even though Intro to Practicum has ended, you still have school on Thursday mornings, and Approaches has taken over that time slot, and you will be doing your presentations in Approaches. Not sure what day you are presenting, so check the schedule. Those presentations are worth 15% of your final grade. And then on Friday, another assignment for teamwork and communication. Your personal communication plan is due, and that is worth 15% of your final grade in teamwork and communication. All right, now there we see the last 2 weeks of the semester. Just pointing out to you that the week of December 4th is a short week. School ends on Wednesday, December 6th, so keep that in mind as you are planning your life. All right, in affective relationships, Jean would like you to read chapter 12 to prepare for that week in affective relationships. On Thursday, there will be the final group doing their presentations. Not sure if you are in that group or not, so again, check the schedule. Those presentations in Approaches are worth 15% of your final grade. And then also in Intro to ECE, very important, on the 30th of November is your last test in the Intro to ECE course, and that is worth 20% of your final grade. That's all the information I have for the week of November 27th, so here we are in the week of December 4th, the last week of the semester. On Monday of that week, you have your third and last test in affective relationships, and that is worth 25% of your final grade. Jean has told me that this time around he has not given you the questions, but he has made an effort to communicate very clearly in all of the classes what is important, what you need to know, and what you need to remember for that final test in affective relationships. And just a little plug for my other set of podcasts, the ones about how I didn't get 100% on Jean's test, that will also be helpful in helping you study and do well on this last test in Jean's class. All right, also on Monday, December 4th, your analysis assignment is due in my observing class. Remember that that assignment has a group part and an individual part, and both of those will be due on that day, and that assignment in total is worth 20%. On Tuesday, we will have our last lab, last view of the children in the nursery, and that will be an exciting day to be in there, so don't miss that. In teamwork and communication, your group project self-assessment is due on that Tuesday. That is worth 10% of your final grade, and that's the last piece of that group presentation project. So there you go, self-assessment. In approaches, you will be having a chance with Diane to review everything for the final exam. So that's a very important class to attend. On Wednesday, December 6th, the last day of classes, your research paper is due in my observing course. It is worth 20% of your final grade. If you think you're going to need an extension for that, feel very free to send me a Mayo. I will say yes and give you a 1-week extension on that. But that is not the end of the week, because on Friday, December 8th, it is your final exam in approaches. It is worth 30% of your final grade, so don't forget about that. Final exam in approaches on Friday, December 8th. Alrighty, that's it for this semester. If throughout this semester as a fast track you have come up with any great system or found any great tools or resources to help you stay organized and manage your time, please share that information with me. And in the new year, you could become a podcast star. Remember, as always, to post your comments on YouTube if you have anything you'd like to say about the podcast. Remember that you can find a full transcript of the podcast by clicking on transcript underneath the video. And stay tuned for the next announcement. This time it won't just be a boring old podcast about all your homework, but a fun podcast just in time for the holidays. So stay tuned for that. I will see you in observing, but don't let me forget to wish you all a great holiday break, and I will see you in the new year. That's it. Bye.